So, hello everybody again. We are starting now, and it will be a great honor to have Chief Phill Lane with us in a second. He is waiting, he is here, all the way from Canada. But before we start, we will show a very brief video clip, which we will play in a moment.
Midakiepi, my very beloved members of the human family, past, present, and future. Until we fully realize the spiritual reality of the prior unity and oneness of the human family, and that the herd of one is a herd of all, and live again in harmony with the natural laws of the natural world, there will be no solutions to the deepening crisis of climate change.
Good evening, and of course, good morning to you, Chief Phill Lane.
Good morning.
Yes, while here it's evening. It is my great pleasure to introduce you all to Chief Phill Lane Jr. I could say Dr. Chief Phill Lane, but he usually doesn't want us to say that, so I've sneaked it in. Brother Phill is a member of the Dakota and Chickasaw Nation, and he's a global leader in human, community, and economic development, and he's recognized as a hereditary chief. What is there to say about somebody who has lived a long life, a very active life, a very spiritual life, and a very rich life? I will try to say a few things. I know that Chief Phill Lane has been a tireless activist, leader and wisdom teacher, and now is also, of course, an elder. He has worked with Indigenous people around the world. He served as an associate professor at the University of Lethbridge, Alberta. He founded the Four Worlds International Institute, has been one of the key Indigenous leaders in resolving the residential school issue lately in Canada, which brought us all to tears, and whilst also being a water, human rights and anti-racist activist. He has received countless awards, of course, and hopefully he will share some of his experiences as an Indigenous activist with us. But he is lately come out also quite strongly about the way the world is going, that we need to unite and that we need to understand, as we saw it in the film, that it is the spiritual, and that we need a spiritual evolution, and that it's underlying everything. And only then, I think, can we completely and utterly understand what this idea of oneness is about. So, Brother Phill, I am honored, and you know that. And when we spoke before we agreed on a time and that you would speak at the conference, you said you would do a little entry prayer, and we would like you to do that.
Yes. It's so nice to be with Krista and all the other relatives here. I want to say this. You know, you're saying about an honor being with me and so forth. You know, if anybody sees spiritual qualities in me they admire, it's because they already have the spiritual qualities. If there's anything I say in our visit today that harmonizes, it's because you already knew it. So we're just mirrors. Each of us is sovereignty, ancient, imperishable, and everlasting. And that's why I want to, at this time, to give thanksgiving to this incredible something sacred moving. That's one of our words we have for it. This power, and to engage this and to have it inspire our thoughts and words together as one heart, one mind, and many bodies. Odin Kashla Wakantaka, creator of the universe, most beloved one, all powerful one, most kind one, most compassionate one, ever forgiving one, O ancient of days, O blessed beauty, O magnificent one, we call upon your holy power at this time and all our relatives and ancestors, past, present, and future, who are closer than a closest vein, to inform us, to inspire us this morning as we look at the condition of our mother and the condition of ourselves. For Mother Earth is not sick, as you know, Creator have taught us, we're sick. In the we give thanksgiving to all the tribes and nations of the east, from where comes the red sunrise. They might come together in unity and harmony as prophesied, and bring that freshness of new spring, a new sunrise. Into the south, from where comes new life. We call upon all those tribes and nations to come together in unity and harmony and join us in the sacred circle of life, before the sacred tree of life. And we call upon all those tribes and nations to the west, from where comes thunder, lightning, and rain, to come together and to awaken us with that spiritual power of thunder, lightning, and rain, so we might awaken to our true reality. Each of us a sovereignty, ancient and perishable and everlasting. We give thanksgiving to all the tribes and nations of this north, from where comes the white snow, the purifying north winds, to purify our hearts and minds. We might remember that time when we all stood before the sacred tree and were given the sacred teachings. They're now being fulfilled everywhere on Mother Earth. We give thanksgiving to Father Sky. As a man, I ask forgiveness for my brothers, my grandfathers, especially my generation, for the way we've brought this world. And I give thanksgiving to Mother Earth that women are rising as prophesied to take us through and bring us and birth us in to this new day, this new age, this day that shall not be followed by night. O my God, unite the hearts of thy servants and reveal unto them the great purpose. May they follow in thy commandments and abide in thy law. Help them, O God, in their endeavor, and grant them strength to serve thee. O God, leave them not to themselves, but guide their steps with a light of knowledge, and cheer their hearts by thy love. Verily, thou art their help, and their Lord. O Creator of all good things, I give you thanksgiving this morning, and I'll close in our Dakota way. When we finish speaking, we say, Shunkmano Hemeado, Chinupasapa Hemeado, which means my names are Shunkmano and Chinupasapa, and I stand responsible before the Creator for my words and my actions. Aho.
Aho. Aho, Phill. And the standing responsible, maybe we can start here, shall we? That we stand responsible. Because of course we're going through a time now where we have to take some responsibility.
Yes.
And this was not discussed, but it just, for me, this just resonated at the moment. It seems to me that you have taken a lot of responsibility over many, many years as an activist. Do you want to talk a bit about it? Just where you started roughly and how it led you to where you are now?
Yes. Well, I was born in an Indian residential school, Indian boarding school in Lawrence, Kansas, called the Haskell Indian School. And at that time, when my dad was born about 1913, my mother about 5 years after that. At that time, in order to try to quote unquote civilize our Indigenous people, they had big, large boarding schools, residential schools in Canada. They call them the very things you're talking about. Carlisle Indian School was really a big one in Pennsylvania, and Haskell Institute, which is still now Haskell First Nations University, it's a university now. And they brought the leadership of all these different tribes together from the United States, Alaska, all came there. And then, of course, there was a very militaristic context, because they wanted to train them, to be good, quote unquote, Americans. Well, now Canada, by the way, the government boarding schools in the U.S. were rough, they were. But I got to say, it was the Anglican Church of Canada, the Episcopal Church of the United States, the Catholics. By the way, it was churchianity. I can't call it Christianity. That's where a lot of this. But the government schools were very tough. They were, to quote unquote civilize you, but the same level of sexual abuse and so forth was not taking place, and physical abuse, because you had younger children and older children. Anyway, so my father was sent there when he was 13, after my grandfather died when he was very young. He was raised by my great-grandfather, Tipi Sapa, Philip Deloria. And so my grandmother, Ella Deloria, had come home and found him, there with my great-grandfather. And so she got him off to Haskell because really there was no alternative. So he left home when he was 12 years old. And then when he was 17, he said he was standing there. They were bringing the new students. The new students were arriving. And like a little truck would pull up. And out stepped my mother, Chickasaw Nation. And he said, as soon as I saw your mother, son, he said, that's the woman I'm going to marry. That's the woman I'm going to marry. And sure enough, so so they knew each other. And he left Haskell when he was 17 and hitchhiked out to the Umatilla Reservation in Oregon with his friend Boots LaCourse. And of course, all that time, he wrote my mother, and that was the woman he's going to marry. And of course, those are pretty rough days for our Indigenous people. But since in our Ocheti Chikoan way, our Ihanktonwan way, when you wish to marry someone, you have to send over lots of horses. Once. Oh, by the way, you make the agreement first, then you send so many gifts, to demonstrate the love and compassion. I mean, not the compassion, the love. you're gonna in a Dakota language, man and woman. There's one word for man, which husband, which means the greatest man, and for the woman, it means the greatest woman. So you bring gifts. So sure enough. It was during World War II, 1943. My dad shows up at my mother's home at Chickasaw Nation territory. He had $2,000 he'd saved. It was a lot of money in those days. And he got a degree in forestry out of Oregon State University, one of the first Native people to do it. But that was his mom. It took him 5 years to get through. I think he probably got C grades, but he's a tremendous fighter, boxer. And he fought his way through. And of course, worked out in the Warm Springs Reservation. Of course, he saw what happened. He was there actually working during the Depression back in the beginning of the 30s, right in there. They had what they call these Indian CC camps. So they'd send Native people kind of to work on various parks and so forth and so on, and they'd get some training. Anyway, so I got to say, as I think about it, it was my father and my mother who carried this incredible values. The Chickasaws are known as the Spartans of the Southeast. And they're the only nation that I know of, Indigenous nation, who simultaneously fought the French and English at the same time. They resisted both. From the French coming from the south, the Mississippi, and the English from the north, they fought both. And of course, then eventually they got split up and all, just like anybody else. But they were known, the women were known for stainless virtue, and the men as tremendous good warriors. And so from my mother's grandfather, his parents died in the Trail of Tears, and he was raised by his aunt, the wife of the president, president of the Chickasaw Nation. It's like your chairman of the Chickasaw Nation, and then became a main leader, one of the leaders of the Full Blood Party that was during the times they were fighting over slavery. He was the head of the Chickasaw Senate. He spoke all the indigenous languages in Oklahoma. He was the translator for the Chickasaw Nation. So my mother was a tremendous influence on me, but also my father.
Okay, you were almost born into
yes.
that incredible fighting spirit, but also that uniting spirit, weren't you, in a way, because you are a mixture. Yeah. And of course, the spirit of leading.
Right. And also on particularly on my father's side, his grandfather who raised him was hereditary, as well as a big account of him being chief of the White Swan Dakotas, one of the chiefs of the White Swan Dakotas. And then, of course, my father was raised by him. So there's been a whole long lineage. Now, my great-great-grandfather, Hinhan, all man, was truly both a holy man, or the Holy Man Society ahead of that, but also the political leader. So he was, and he had some tremendous visions. And one of the things he did was he wrote, anyway, this is a long story, but I'll make it short. He raised this bay horse and the rider, Matogi, brown bear, who as prophesied, slayed the big white albino buffalo. And it said, from that lineage, there would be people, and there's many, just myself, there would come people who would see it through the wintertime. And we would, in fact, arise through the wintertime and meet others from other places in Mother Earth who are also destined to come together at this time as one heart and one mind for unprecedented unified action to stop the destruction of our Mother Earth.
Right. And this winter time is now.
It is no, the springtime's now. Springtime's now. You know, we have a prophecy. Many prophecies, but one of them was so classic to me. It said, this new springtime will really begin to intensify when the eagle flies to the moon and lands. Okay, now this prophecy is shared by the Inuit, down into to different tribes. You know, I heard it as my father, and I couldn't figure out the eagle's going to fly to the moon. Well, of course, in 1969, when they sent that first rocket to the moon, when it landed, the first words they sent to the Earth was, "The eagle has landed," and that was a sign. That's part after, you might say, my awakening began back in 1967. And I'm going to say that if you want to kind of do some background on that, you know, I got to say, I guess maybe my mom and dad went to residential schools. I think because if you're lighter complected, you get it from both sides. On one hand, you get it from the full blood side because you're not dark enough. On the other side, you get it from the European side because you couldn't be Indian or because you're different, how culturally different. You get it from both sides. And you know, so I was full of when I got out of high school, I was 17 years old. I worked every summer since I was 12, and so I got a buddy of mine. I was one of the only Indigenous students there because we had communities around me, and he was one of the only Jewish students. So we got together and decided, hey, I want to find out how in the world this thing happened. I'm going to go to Europe. So my dad made a little sign that says New York or bust. Walla Walla, Washington is about 3,500 miles from New York City. It was the end of August, 1962. He took us to the edge of the town, in little tiny bags, and away we went. 44 rides later, and 4.5 days later, we were going across the Staten Island Ferry in New York City.
Which was an adventure in those days and rarely done. No? Yes,
rarely. And so then we spent 2 weeks there. This is the time of Joy D and the Peppermint Starlighters and all these. Went down to Greenwich Village where they had the cafe, why and the why not. This was for me completely brand new. And a strange thing, my father had a friend who worked in this feed company because he was where he got his horse feed. And he said, you know, I have a brother-in-law. He works in New York. He's from the routed through Pact. You know, he gets rides for people over to Europe. Sure enough, we went to see him and we had a big desk. He said, okay. So he got us on a free S4 freighter carrying military cargo to Germany. And so we went down, we got on the thing, and there was a beautiful German couple who wrote this letter for us so people could understand. Anyway, so we went across and we went down first to Baltimore, then, we went to Brooklyn, Navy Yard. We took off from there, went to Baltimore, and then with Norfolk, Virginia. That's the first time, by the way, I directly saw, and it really burned me up too. I love these cooks and other crew members. Had so many great stories, especially when you were just turned 18. So we get off in Norfolk, Virginia. And of course, it was a big deal for us because at the time, which, by the way, to kill my anger and rage, I I consumed a lot of alcohol those days. You know, it was in your young days, you could handle it better, but in the end, you can't. So anyway, we went and they had a bar there because you got off the boat. This is also in a Navy yard, and I saw my dear friend cooks. They went into to one side, and then they had the quote unquote white people on the other side. I didn't know where I fit, but I wanted to go with my friends who were the cooks. They said, "No, Phil, you can't do that." Well, anyway, we went to Germany, and I went there to see what happened. And I'll never forget, we arrived in Bremerhaven, and about a 10-day trip. Did a little thing that said we're, teenagers from America, blah, blah, blah. And this young man hosted it at home that night. Anyway, we traveled around, went up to Copenhagen, stayed there for a while, then came back down, we went to the Oktoberfest. And we were going along, and I looked to the right, and there was a whole teepee camp there. I thought I was having, some kind of a Twilight Zone experience, but of course you have these Indian groups there in Germany, and all through there, they're to Karl Mayr. But anyway, I'm bringing the point is that really it was in a train traveling to München, where there was a lot of German veterans from World War II there. And I saw the destruction there. In fact, in Stuttgart, when I was working in a garage there, I slept in a bomb shelter and made it into a hotel. Well, anyway, this veteran came, and he'd been drinking a little bit and came and, he came to sit with us and, started talking. He spoke good English because he'd been in a prison camp during the war. And he said, and he'd been asking me about Native people. Now, you don't know that where I grew up, there was a tremendous, Walla Walla, Washington, go back to the history, there was a tremendous animosity between Indigenous people and Europeans. And so, I didn't talk about, in fact, those things you didn't talk about. I go to the Umatilla Reservation, I go to the Nez, I go all these reservations, but when I went to school, people just didn't talk about it.
Yeah, it was basic.
It didn't talk about it. And I started telling him these stories my father told him, and this man started to cry. Now, I had been raised this phony baloney about big boys don't cry and all that, which keeps your pain in. But when I saw him crying, it just hit me. And then when I realized the story had been told me younger, the Shukiko Crazy Horse was called Crazy Horse. Strange man, they call him the strange man. Well, then when I went down to the Northern Cheyenne, I found that he used to go over and visit the Northern Cheyennes, and his teacher was Roman-nosed. So he learned Cheyenne ways. So because he stepped out of his culture, he could look back at it. He could see it. Because if you're in it, you can't see it. So what happens when you get out of it, you look back at it, you can see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so and I believe that's part of what Black Elk's vision was when he said, and two men were flying from the east, from work, and between them rose the daybreak star, and they came and gave 4 herbs to me: red, yellow, black, and white. And with this herb of understanding, you shall have a power of all things. And I took it and dropped upon the earth, and where it fell, there was no more darkness. Yeah. That really has been a guide to my life in terms, you want to say of how, I feel that we can gain understanding and strength. He said this: between them rose the daybreak star with 4 blossoms: red, that's the red sunrise; yellow, the south; black, or dark blue, that's the west; and white. And the daybreak star herb, and they gave this herb to me, and I dropped it upon the earth, and where it fell, there was no more darkness. Okay, so that's why when I was about 3.5, I lived in Panama for 2 years, because my father was a, you know, because of his love for his mother, became a forestry person, but also he was really good at structural engineering. So he was there on the studies in the sea level canal. After, you know, after World War II, they're trying to make a sea level canal there in Panama. And so I spent those years there, and I spoke a little Spanish there. So I had a great love. I had my two caretakers because my mother was working. One was Caroline from Jamaica, African from Jamaica. My other was Dominga, who was a beautiful indigenous woman from the mountains there. And they were my caretakers. I mean, probably they're more than my mother. Yeah. My mother was there, obviously. And, you know, and then from there came back, of course, you know, traveled up, ended up in, I was, of course, Deloria, Kansas. And then I was over in a little place called Walla Walla, Washington. We'd go back to the Dakotas to visit, or back to Oklahoma for family reunions of the Chickasaw Dakota side. But, you know, as soon as I could, I headed to the north, to Europe, and symbolically. And I traveled, I hitchhiked all through there, you know, down into, you know, down as far down to Rome, Livorno, Pisa, all around Barcelona, all along the coast there. I hitchhiked up through France, Avignon, Lyon, up to Paris, and we cut across to Stuttgart, you know. And before that, we'd been in Munich. So
yeah. Stuttgart. So we had a little chat about Stuttgart when we. So in a way, what you're also saying is that the way you travel the world, and from early on, and different influences you have, yeah, from yes. your heritage, from where you come from, who your parents, yeah. your grandparents were, made you in a way somebody quite open and also understanding that from those four corners that we need to unite for this shift.
Yes. And as well, when I was about 9 years old, my father said, you know, son, when we go back to Wakpala on the Standing Rock on the reservation where my dad was born, he said, I'm going to have your grandfather, Chantewashte, Strongheart, give you a name. And of course, you know, my father kept me away from all influences. I lived by, two of us lived out away from town. Like, I couldn't go to town to anything to do but to play sports. I couldn't involve myself in any social things. My father wouldn't let me. And so he would, see, I kind of lost my thought there. What was I started reminiscing there. That one part.
Well, you were talking about, yeah, I lost it now as well because I was looking at some questions.
That's all right. You know, when you get, you know, it's so beautiful to get older, because when you get older, you have all these old memories come back, and yeah. it's but so you know, I traveled around Europe, and then my father ended up down in Panama. That's where I was talking about Panama. Then from there, the next place that came, you know, I went was China and Asia, all through Southeast Asia, where we had a project. We worked with indigenous people across ASEAN, you know, primarily in Indonesia, Thailand, Myanmar, Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia, that area, Cambodia. And so we worked, and we were developing there. Now there was a really, I mean, especially working with these young people coming in from Myanmar, Burma, because it was when, you know, now of course the government has really tightened down, that they were really tight then. And they would come across at Mesat, and we had a training program there. My daughter and my son-in-law were working with me. And what we do is these indigenous people would come, and we trained them in what we call deep social networks, you know, how to utilize the internet. And so, yeah. Which, by the way, was prophesied directly in 1975. These elders told us what's going to happen. So anyway, we trained them, and they go across the border. I mean, they could into the dark zones, and that's how they really begin to master and change. So that gave me the South, the Asia part, you know. I also when I first went there in 1980, no, it was 1990. When I first went there, I was 1990. I was blessed to meet this most beautiful, beloved Thai Buddhist love of my life.
She's your wife, and you have yeah.
So that was the. So you have the red indigenous nations, which I travel across the Americas many times, visiting because because the prophecies about what's going to happen and what's happening across the Americas, the prophecy of the reunion of the condor, the quetzal, and the eagle, that's happening. That's the indigenous people of the Americas. And then the European relatives, because my grandfather, Vine Deloria Sr., always told me, he said, grandson, you've got to make allies. He said, because in each tribe, each nation, they have their own can of worms. So you have to find somebody there that's respected, that you can agree to, and they'll bring the message, and you'll take their message, because you're not going to be able to do it. I don't know how long. The people you grew up with and know tight, as we're opening up, we're going to come closer, but still there's certain closest. So he said, make allies. So Europe, and I especially I found tremendous connection with our relatives in the Netherlands, and still to this day, and Germany, and France. In fact, everywhere I went there, I found good people. In England, I got a chance. I was a guest of Prince Philip at the World Wildlife. It was another part of my activist days. The World Wildlife Fund back in 1985 called a summit that brought together world scientists, spiritual leaders, environmentalists, families of hereditary leadership. I mean, all this in Assisi.
Yeah.
In that big place. In the Basilica, this whole thing. And so my dear brother, Chief Leonard George, the son of Chief Dan George, and I were invited to come. A dear brother of ours named Hugh Locke kind of arranged all that. And so we flew into London. I'll tell you, that's where I really began to understand other dimensions of things, like this whole thing about, because we were hosted by this Baroness de Pauli. And so we met these princesses and all these relatives, and they get in these discussions about, do you put your milk in first, or you're pulling your milk in last? I mean, it was hilarious. And I watched this whole scene, but it was really, that was, if you think about 1885, that was very visionary, to bring together all these leadership. And Leonard and I did right in the top, as you look up at the basilica on the top of that hill, we made a huge fire up there and had a big fire ceremony. And, and we were, I was kindly invited by Prince Philip to sit at his table. It was very interesting there. Here was Prince Philip. Here was the Pope's representative. Here was the translator between them. And here they were fighting over the deal between the Catholics and the Anglicans. They were there. Then we had a temple dancer a temple dancer from India. Myself was here. There was Thor Heyerdahl, Sir Edmund Hillary, all these relatives, and the Dalai Lama's main abbot was there, and they brought their monks, and they had their incredible horns. Yeah. That's where we sent this sacred eagle feather from the abbot to the Dalai Lama with a message of our love and support. That was 1985. That was a way back. You see, and I can say, people can say what they want to say, and I had a chance to see firsthand. The people there were sincere. They were sincere. I have to tell you, although, and I say this with great respect, although he was a little dull, in certain ways. I'm not going to be dull, but kind of a, what do you call it? Innocent. But, Prince Philip, really, really treated us well. And I found him to be a very, very, in fact, after I returned back to Canada, a letter arrived from Buckingham Palace. And there's a book we wrote back in 1985 called, just had written it, The Sacred Tree. It's a beautiful book. And so he said if he could send some copies. And so I sent 5 copies back to Buckingham Palace, so I know they get a chance to read those. And then I sent back our series, Walking with Grandfather. So again, I'm certainly, there's a lot of things going on in the world. I mean, obviously, I feel sorry for our human family. One of the worst pains is wanting to find the truth and not knowing where to find it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's where we are.
Yeah.
In a certain way.
Because, of course, we have not only lost the connection with each other, which yes. we have lost the connection to our base, which is the earth.
Yes,
it?
Exactly.
And having separated in all directions, down, sideways, we are so separated.
Exactly.
And I think with that, we cannot find home. We desperately looking for something.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to put in here a fundamental concept, a fundamental reality that is so important, I think, as a foundation. And I spoke to it in a little video, and that is the understanding of the prior unity and oneness of our human family and all life. And the hurt of one is a hurt of all, and the honor of one is the honor of all.
Yeah.
And the restoration of one is the restoration of all.
Yeah.
Now, when I'm saying the prior unity, meaning this consciousness we share has been here from the beginning, that we have been who we are from the beginning in a way that has no beginning because we can't even imagine to get there. I mean, it's infinite. So our minds can no way compass it. You can't even talk about it.
Yeah.
And when you get to think how deep it is, but that means the seed. In a way, what I see, and from best we can understand this bang, bam, boom, like this. Same thing that happens, by the way, they've taken pictures now when the sperm and the egg come together in a human being. You see this flash, boom, this thing goes. Well, within that seed, the whole thing that seed is a consciousness of who we are. That doesn't make any difference what kind of physical form we have, you see. So here's this boom like this. Well, life, there's as many fixed stars in the heavens and fixed planets therein. There is life. Now there's some form of life. It all comes from the same place. We're one. The same atomic chart operates whether you're 10 billion light years from now here or 100 miles from here. We live in this same physical plane of time and space. So that's that. And we have emerged from that. But I think this is what's so important, at least from my understanding, is that there is a dimension of us. We have a word for it, means the shadow, but the soul. Now the soul, all the powers that distinguish us as a human beings, reason, memory, abstract thought, creativeness, willpower, inventiveness, all are properties of our soul, not our bodies. All right. And this is another one to really get down to this understanding. And then we'll say, well, what does it mean to dealing with what we have to deal with? The soul has no gender, race, ethnicity, or class. This reality makes all forms of prejudice, whatever they may be, intolerable and unacceptable. The soul is not divided. It is a reflection of the oneness of our Creator. Now, so this earth suit, let me, because I think people have lost many times. We lose the times when we really get down, we lose our purpose. We lose our vision. We lose our meaning. Why are we here? Why is all this things going on? Are we supposed to suffer? Is that the purpose? So I think that understanding is fundamental. Maybe it's a different way of coming at this, but from my perspective, when we're conceived and the chromosomes and the egg come together, and we're born into this physical plane of time and space, each of us, this is because the soul is the foundation. It's not that of everything. that we're born here, sovereignty is ancient, imperishable, and everlasting. There's so many dimensions of ourselves we'll never know this plane of existence, this short time we're here. But we begin to grow our arms and legs and eyes and ears within our mother's womb. Now, when we're in our mother's womb, we go through all kinds of forms and shapes. Some doctors have told me that they can't tell, unless you're trained, you can't tell the difference between a pig fetus and a human fetus. So, we go through these changes. Now, if you think about it, we're growing our eyes. Do we need them? No. We're growing our ears. Do we need them? No. Nose, mouth, no. Lungs, no. Heart, what? We're floating around in the amniotic fluid being supplied completely from our mothers and the world around. We're veiled from this world. We're veiled. We know that that vibration, frequency, we know that's a main healer. That's why we had a lot of songs we'd play for the children. So we feel vibration. And at a certain time, we know exactly when it was, we die from the womb world and are born in this world. And of course, we come out, and what happened? Boom! First thing,
yeah.
I start using my lungs. If I start breathing inside my mother's womb, I drowned. So anyway, so all of a sudden, here I am. Whoa! All right. So here I am in this physical plane of time and space. Now, the people in the world of physical time and space who were around me knew I was in the womb. They knew I was here. I didn't know they were there. Some people might, but I didn't. And so here they were. They knew I was coming. So I died from my womb suit. I died, the afterbirth. And I got an earth suit, right? Okay. What was the purpose in the womb? The purpose in the womb was to grow my physical arms and legs and eyes and ears. I believe the purpose in this life, where the only place you're going to find happiness, is to grow our spiritual arms and legs and eyes and ears. Become more compassionate, more loving, more just. And so that's why in our prophecies of the reunion of the condor and the eagle, which has been fulfilled on June 22nd, 2020, that we know that despite the wintertime, that we would emerge from the wintertime stronger than we've ever been. There's no way that you can grow and develop without some tests and difficulties and challenges. Now, so I'm saying my little short purpose here is 77 winters. Because I'll tell you, as I shared, but 54 years ago, before I had this spiritual experience, and by the way, I'm not any saint, because I think we go through many spiritual births and rebirths. But in those days, we have this all of us by the ancestors who are with us at all times, and what we're given, because the greatest curricula is not out of a book, although I love books. Confessions of Economic Hitman, I understand after this Jill Myers is going to come. But the thing is, we are the curriculum. We're the curriculum. So I don't know how we're doing in time-wise.
5 more minutes.
Okay, great.
Yep.
So here we are today. Our prophecies are very clear, that while this old, outworn, materialistic paradigm is breaking down, we're breaking through. And a new global civilization is unfolding upon Mother Earth, based in the understanding of the prior unity and oneness of our human family with the organizing principle of justice, which means the equality of women and men. The eagle of humanity has two wings, the eagle, the condor, the quetzal. One is man and one is woman, and both must be given equal, responsible equal respect and love and compassion. The extremes of wealth and poverty must be balanced because we know each of us is a sovereignty, ancient and perishable and everlasting, and every human being has a right to eat, drink clean water, to have some food to eat, universal education. And we could go on.
And on.
And on about the fundamental principles. So I say this, what really helped us. Back in 1982, between Christmas and New Year's, we called a meeting of 40 elders from across the Turtle Island. And for 4 days and 4 nights, we met. And we asked them, what do we do? And here's what they said after we summarized. And they had many of these relatives, tribes had never come together before. It was truly a story. And when we distilled it, this is what they said. They said, this universe we live in is organized according to certain natural, physical, and spiritual laws that are inseparably connected. They said the physical laws are easy to understand. If you drive a car 100 miles an hour into a concrete wall, you're going to get smashed up. If you jump off head first on your head off a 10-story building, you're going to get a headache. If you drink arsenic, you're going to die. I mean, we can see exactly what's happening today. Exactly what we've done in violating these natural laws.
Yeah.
But as well, there's spiritual laws, spiritual principles that govern this universe. And they said, once you become these and understand these, you become one with the will, if you want to call it that, of the universe. And they taught us that first 4 years, we work with 4. Development comes from within. Others could help and assist, but it must emerge from the individual, the tribe, or the family, the tribe, the nation. No vision, no development. No participation, no development. There's a moral dimension to development, and so forth. So I guess we had these gatherings, and by the time each year we had a summer institute. So finally, we had in 1982, 1994, 95. We had 500 relatives come for 7 days at the University of Lethbridge. I was a professor at the time. And we completed the 16 principles for building a sustainable, harmonious world. And I was invited by President Cuellar to come back to the United Nations under the World Commission on Culture and Development and presented the prophecies of what was going to happen, which you can read it, and anybody can read it and see exactly what the elders said is happening right now. Same thing we said to the United Nations. As well as we presented these 16 principles, which now are at the foundation of our indigenous movement across the Americas.
I have seen those. Yeah, and people can access them, can't they? I've seen it on your website, or on the Institute's website. We need to come to an end.
That's great.
Even I'm fairly sure most people could listen to you much longer. All the things you said, if people would like to read up on it, okay, the Facebook page, but also there is your website, isn't it? The International Society?
Four Worlds International Institute.
4 Worlds International Society.
Yes,
is that still applicable? I put it in.
Oh, yes, fwii.net. fwii.net.
Yeah.
And if I may, Krista, if I may sing one verse.
Yes, I wanted to ask you, would you like to do a closing chant or song? Or
yes. I want to sing this song and honor this next speaker. You know, when I read the Confession of an Economic Hitman, and I saw the integrity of someone who was willing to stand up among those colleagues who would label him a betrayer or whatever. I admire that. So I'm going to sing this song to also honor everybody here in the universe, as well as to honor him for what he's done by sharing. And I know he's following the books he's had as well. But this song is from our White Buffalo Cattleman. And what it says is, behold, the sacred pipe is holy. Behold. What it's saying is the mineral people, the bowl, the stem, the plants people, the animal representation, we have animal people. When you put it together, here's the mouth and the human being, all sacred. The mineral, the plant, the animal, the human, It's all sacred. I'll sing that and just give you Thanksgiving. I just enjoyed myself, Krista, so much. Now, by the way, where are you calling? Where are you now?
We are right now in the UK.
Oh, you're in the UK. Okay.
Yeah. But I'm, of course, German, as you have spotted.
Oh, great. Okay. So you could relate to some of those places I talked about.
Absolutely. So, yes, go sing it. John is already here, so he will hear it.
Okay.
John, this is for you and for all of us.
Yes. Oh, Shukmano he meado, Chinupasaba he meado, Howley mi chante washte. Aho.
Aho, and thank you so much. What
Thank you.
can I say? You can see all the comments here, the many thank yous, and so moving, and we love you. And somebody says, wow, that hits my soul. Thank you ever so much. Really, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I know it's very early in Canada. So we are going to take a short break before we take John Perkins. I guess you know each other. There's lots of thank yous coming up. I don't know if you can see the chat.
I'm going to make a copy of them so I can look at them. See.
Yeah, I mean they're everywhere. So moving, Chief Phill, so powerful.
Well, we've been good mirrors to one another.
I can listen and you can talk. Huh? So we fit together perfectly.
Okay.
Bye.
See you all.
And thank you, and we stay in touch.
I'm gonna stay and listen to myself. Enjoy.
Okay.